Hello.
Hi.
Kayla Lords.
John Brownstone.
Of Loving BDSM, where we help kinksters like you have happy, healthy power exchange relationships. We are doing something we have not done, and I did not even want to go back into the archive to see how long it's been. We're doing an honest-to-God review. We're reviewing a product.
Yeah.
This was sent to us in exchange for the review, but that does not dictate the kind of review. And this time we are reviewing a workbook, Becoming a Service Submissive. Let me read it, the whole title. It's a workbook to discover your style and enhance your DS dynamic, by our friend Luna Carruthers of Submissive Guide, a site we highly recommend for...
We've mentioned them numerous times, yes.
If you're submissive with or without a partner, go forth and learn from Submissive Guide. This is not the first book of Luna's that we have reviewed.
Correct.
I'll try to link to other reviews we've done down below. But this one does focus on becoming a service submissive, hence the title. Let's do a spoiler. What do you think? What is our review?
I like the book. I flipped through it. I didn't read, word for word.
Sure, it's not really written for you.
and yet, there were things that I was flipping through, was catching my eye, and I was reading, and was like, So, to say that it may not be written directly for me, but in flipping through it, I was like, okay, I've gleaned a few things here and there.
Yeah, you are the beneficiary of service submission.
True.
I am a service submissive.
Yes.
It's funny, I just sort of have always been that kind of person in general, but certainly partner. And between things I've learned over the past, let's not think of how many years I've been a service submissive, as well as from resources like Submissive Guide and this workbook, I'm always learning sort of new language and ways to think about it. So that was a very pleasant surprise. Yeah, I highly recommend this. I recommend this for anybody who thinks, service sounds like something I would do, but also I think I recommend it for submissives who aren't sure what to do in a power exchange beyond whatever your kinky fuckery is, beyond waiting for your dom to sort of take charge and lead. I mean, that is an element of power exchange, but service can be anything and everything. It does not have to be domestic household chores. And it can be a way to connect within your dynamic together, but also for submissives who are like, I never really feel submissive until this very specific time, and you want to feel submissive more often. Service can be an aspect of that. In the workbook itself, it's a nice chunky one in the printed one. It's also an workbook as well. You can get a digital download. You're going to get information about the different concepts that Luna's talking about in the workbook, and we'll go through some of those in a minute. You also get links to podcast episodes, articles on Submissive Guide. So there are resources. And what I like in the print version, they're shortened URLs. So if you've got the physical book, typing out the URL is very easy.
There's a URL or the URLs, and also apparently there's a QR code.
Yes.
That will bring you to all the links.
Right. So if you get the printed version, if you decided to do this workbook, you're going to have access to all the digital stuff too. And then there are literal worksheets, which I, as somebody who writes her own workbooks, love a good worksheet because it takes each section that you're going over and gives you a way to think through it, figure out how you might identify based on the information shared.
Now, one thing I liked right off the very bat in the beginning of the book, it states this is non-sexual.
Yes, that's the whole first chapter is about how it does not have to be sexual service. Sexual service is absolutely a part of power exchange. Non-sexual service is absolutely an option. There's a part in here where Luna was like, when we first got into power exchange, I hated chores. And I didn't want that to be part of my submission, but over time, she shifted her thinking on service and could do chores, even chores she used to hate, because it held meaning to her as a submissive and within her power exchange, which I totally get.
Kind of relate to that a little bit.
I still don't like chores at all. Will happily pay somebody else to clean my house when I can. But there are things I do that we negotiated into our relationship in general, and certainly our power exchange, that it's an act of service. It's sometimes the gross act of service. It's the cleaning up of grotesque things that come out of your pets' bodies. But we did negotiate that.
Thank you for your service.
Service can be literally anything, y'all. So, things that stand out to me. So we have talked about service submission multiple times on our own podcast. I'll link to that as well, so you can kind of hear more of what we think. But there were some things that absolutely stood out to me within this, and one specifically that gave me new language to think about service. And that, let's start there. And that's, Luna goes over something called preferred service types. So if you are brand new to service, or the idea of service is just kind of too big of a concept and you're like, yeah, but what does that even mean? She breaks it down into 4 different types of service: transactional, situational, positional, and devotional. Transactional, I think, might be a good place to start if you do not think you're into service, but you're looking for things to do in your power exchange. Transactional means the submissive does something to get something. So, hey, submissive, I'm pretending to be a dom right now. Hey, submissive, go do this thing, and then I will spank your ass, and then we will play with your new rope, and then we will do this thing, right? Situational, you do this a lot. You come to me and go, I have a task for you.
Yes.
These are as needed services. You're just like minding your own business in your life, and your dom is like, hey, I got something I need you to do.
Speaking of which, no.
Well, actually, did I remember a situational task I was given and then promptly forget it again, and now I'm remembering it again? Yeah. There's a whole conversation to be had about, but what if you're not really good at focus and memory and you're being given tasks? Future episode.
Yep.
Positional is something that we do a lot, and that's service is part of your submissive role. You do these things. You've agreed to do these things. You've negotiated these things as part of who you are as a submissive in the relationship. The tasks that I do without oversight from JB, I consider those part of my role. Coffee service, the way we go to bed at night. Those are things that we talked about. JB said, hey, this is what I would like you to do. I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. That's what all negotiation is, y'all. And now there is no necessarily reminding me to do it. There's no coming to me and saying anything. I just kind of get on with it. And it's just it's part of the role.
Part of the routine anymore, yeah.
Right. Devotional, because I'm not this kind of human being. Devotional was one where I was like, that is interesting. And
you're like, nah.
Look, sometimes it's about how you're wired too. So that's about worshipful service. That's emotional, connected. Your dom is your part of your reason for being, and you serve as a way to show your affection and your commitment and your caring and your love and your deep submission. And it doesn't necessarily have to be anything other than that, which means that kind of service can be anything. It just has to be meaningful to you and to your partner. I would never knock anybody who, goes deep into the devotional. You're not going to catch me talking about it because I'm not wired that way. That's not true. There's some body parts on you that I absolutely will worship. And I guess it's probably part of submission, but I don't think it has to be. I think it could just be, I really like this kind of body part, and you're letting me do what I like to do on that kind of body part. Thank you. So those were interesting concepts that I had never broken down my own service that way. I'd never thought of those in those terms. And they're big sections on that for you to think about, and then things for you to kind of go through. What are you currently doing? What would you be willing to do as a service submissive, and kind of rank them? Where do they fall within those types? And then the last thing for me that stood out, because it's something we've talked about, again, I'll link to an episode below, and that's the idea of proactive, reactive, and anticipatory service.
Yes, and that caught my eye for the same reason. And what I really liked about that I did kind of read a little bit into, because I wanted to see what was said about it.
Sure.
All. And what I like, we've talked about the anticipatory service,
which is a tricky thing.
It's
a skill.
Which is can be a slippery slope sometimes.
Yes, it can.
And some people really like it. others don't like it at all.
Right, because it's really about the style of dominant.
Right.
And how you want to
Right.
lead this relationship.
So what I liked in the way it was written in the workbook was that it explained the good side of it. It went into the bad side of it. And then it went into a little bit of like a workbook, you know, the workbook side of it, of what you can do if this is something you really like and want to do, how you can work it so that it is not such a bad thing.
Right. So just for anybody who's like, yeah, what does this mean though? Okay, proactive means I know that that's a thing my dom will want me to do. I'll do it before they ask. Reactive, you don't do a thing until your dom asks you to do it. And there are absolutely power exchanges out there like that, and it works for them. Anticipatory is, I don't know that my dom wants or needs me to do this, but I think they might appreciate it, so I'll just go ahead and take care of it. And I like that because I like the idea that I'm taking care of you.
You do.
But it is easy to screw up. And if you happen to have a dominant partner that does not like that as a way of, they see it as not having the control that they want to have, it's one of those things that I would never recommend just doing anticipatory service without having a conversation about, like, is this okay with you? Or is this going to fit how you want to be the dominant in this relationship?
Well, you've done that with me a few times, and there have been times it has been well accepted, and then there's been other times it's kind of fallen flat.
Oh, yes, yeah. If you ever do try anticipatory service, you'll know when you get it wrong. You will know immediately when you get it wrong. So yeah, there is a lot more in this workbook than the things that we have talked about here. Those are just the things that stood out to us. Was there anything else? So if you are looking to explore service submission more deeply, maybe you already know you identify with it, but you're like, yeah, but what does that mean? And how do I do it? Highly recommend this workbook.
Yeah.
If you are looking for something to add to your power exchange in a non-sexual way to bring it outside of the bedroom, I'm not saying every submissive needs to be a service submissive, and I think that you might do or perform services for a partner and never give yourself that label, and I think that's fine. But I do like this as a way to look at who can I be and what can I do as a submissive that's not just the fuckery behind closed doors.
Right.
I'm thinking right now, maybe it's a spoiler, maybe we're time traveling, I don't know. I'm thinking of a question we received that will be, or maybe already has been, a Q&A episode. And they're asking exactly that question, sort of, how do I bring what I want to do, this dynamic outside of the bedroom, and how do I bring my dom along with me? And my first thought was, are there things you can do for your dom that you are willing to do for your dom? And that is an act of service, right? So yeah, I think that any submissive who is looking for things you can do in your power exchange that you can do for your partner to benefit your dom that are also meaningful and fulfilling to you, highly recommend this workbook.
Yeah.
Yep. So again, it is Becoming a Service Submissive by Luna Carruthers. And whether you get this workbook or not, definitely check out submissiveguide.com if you've never been there. The links to everything, including our own episodes on service submission, will be down below. If you have thoughts on service submission, if you have questions, feel free to drop those in the comments below. If we get enough interest, we might bring that topic back, because it's been a hot minute since we talked about it.
It is.
But it is a core part of how I see myself as a submissive. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, we love a thumbs up. If you like it enough to want to come back for more, please consider subscribing.
And ring that notification bell to get updates and new content.
Just do what Daddy says.